Good afternoon or good morning, everybody, depending on where you're joining us from. It is 3 p.m. here in the UK and it's 10 a.m. Eastern time. And of course, you're all most welcome to join us here at 0 Days Live. Now, hello, everybody. Today, of course, is Thursday, where in a few moments, we will welcome Alex Crompton, Head of Security Consulting at BAE Systems, into our virtual studio. But before that, very quick reminder and recap on yesterday's show where we met Kath Golding, our very own CISO or Chief Information Security Officer from Nominet, where she talked all things cyber and how to ensure security is embedded from the start of any digital transformation project and what to do if it isn't. Hello everybody, hope you're well. I'm Stuart Reed and I'm with Nominet, focused on cyber solutions. And as usual, I'm in the chair today to welcome our special guest, not just today, but each and every day of our live shows. And just a quick reminder, Nominet is primarily known for being responsible for managing the .uk domain, which we've been doing so for the last 23 years or so now, and have something in the order of 15 million domains currently under management. And building on this strong heritage of understanding the importance of domain names for network connectivity, we also provide cybersecurity solutions to protect both government and enterprise networks worldwide from cyber attacks, including providing service to the UK government's National Cybersecurity Centre. Ensuring people are able to be connected, included and secure is at the heart of what we do at Nominet. And that is now more important than perhaps ever before with the situation that we're all currently facing. And with that in mind, we wanted to bring you an interactive show to bridge the gap left behind by the lack of physical meetings taking place right now and bring you 0 Days Live for everybody with an interest in or from within the cybersecurity community. I'm joined both front of house and behind the scenes here by a highly capable team, making sure everything runs just the way it should, albeit remotely. And speaking of remotely, that's what we're all doing right now, of course. This week's burning question is, what is your worst isolation purchase you've made? So please do let us know. Yesterday for me, it was car tax. Today, I'm going to stay on the same theme because it also struck me that I've also paid for car insurance, which obviously is something that a lot of people probably don't look forward to doing, but they have it for very good reason. But I really don't feel I've had the benefit of it in the last 2 months or so, but there we go, never mind. And usually at this part of the show, I would welcome Steve, but unfortunately he is in such high demand these days, he cannot join us today. But don't worry, fans of Steve out there, you can catch him on demand at your leisure, at your convenience, by visiting nominetcyber.com/0dayslive or on our YouTube channel. Or you can also catch him live again here next week when he returns, so do not fear. Instead, I will go straight over to Kerry. How are you today, Kerry?
I'm great, thank you, Stuart. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Kerry. Another sunny day back here in the UK, so it's very pleasant looking out my window to a nice sunny, what looks like a nice summer's day. Kerry, of course, our important question this week is, what is your worst isolation purchase? So what have you got for us?
Yeah, well, I think you actually need to sell your car. It's clearly giving you an element of stress that you don't need.
Well, to be honest, Kerry, I'm getting to the point now where very shortly my worst isolation purchase will be my car, so you could be onto something there.
So my worst purchase is potentially this. So what is it, I hear you say?
Yeah, well, I was stumbling with the words actually, but yes, what is that? It looks like some kind of donut.
It is, in fact, a tunnel for a cat to go into.
Okay.
So the jury is out on whether it is my best isolation purchase or my worst isolation purchase, but during isolation, I have purchased a cat to be arriving at the end of the month. So yeah, I've now got, at the moment, I've got a house full of cat toys and no cat to play with them.
Okay, so it's maybe not the worst one, but maybe a premature one, or maybe you're just doing good planning as per normal. So thank you very much for sharing that with us, Kerry. Everyone who's tuning in as well, please do let us know what your worst isolation purchases have been so far, and we'll read them out. Simply type it into the console on the right-hand side of your screen. Now, you guys really do make this show. It's really not the same without you all tuning in, and we're delighted to welcome our regulars and also new audience members every single day as we seek to build an accessible community to bring people together, hear from others in the industry, get a roundup of what's going on in the news, share some thoughts on best practice, and of course interject a bit of good humour along the way. Now, with that in mind, we do cover a lot of important subjects here on 0 Days Live, but we don't take ourselves too seriously. And as a quick reminder, for each of our 30-minute or so shows, we are absolutely live each and every day. And as such, there is bound to be, and there has actually already been in some of our previous shows, some mild blips along the way. But when they do happen, we hope you agree it's just a part of the reason you tune in, and it's a rich tapestry of the show that we're providing you. And remember that whilst we are live for each of our episodes, we are also on demand for your convenience too. So do check us out, as I mentioned before, nominetcyber.com/0dayslive. And check all out of the other episodes that perhaps you've not seen on the live shows. And do get involved as well, by the way. If during today's show or any of the live shows that you join, you want to ask a question or give comment, please do so. Simply type what you want to into the console on the screen on the right hand side. You should see it there, and we'll read them out during the webcast. Now, as I mentioned just a few moments ago, today we are very lucky enough to be welcoming to our virtual studios Alex Crompton, Head of Security Consulting at BAE Systems. Hi there, Alex. How are you doing today?
Hi, Stuart. Hi, Kerry. Doing well. Doing well.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. We do appreciate your time. As you've heard a couple of moments ago, we're asking a burning question all this week, and that burning question is, what is your worst isolation purchase? What's yours?
Well, we've been okay so far, and I can't work out if this is the worst or the best, but we do quite a bit of baking, making bread, and over the recent months, you're probably aware, it's not been too easy to get hold of flour in the shops.
Yeah, that's right.
Weeks ago, I did discover, however, that one of our local breweries, in addition to offering, deliveries of beer, etc., has branched out into wider household goods and is actually selling 16-kilo bags of flour. The big sort of traditional sacks of flour that you see. So we thought, that's not a problem. We'll get through that in 2 months, 3 months. We're making bread every other day or so. So great, fantastic. But the problem, of course, is you've got to store the stuff. Once you've opened it, you need to keep it sealed, or most of it as sealed as possible. So we probably had about 3 days where we were running around the house trying to find various containers to put this flour in so we can then go through it steadily. And I think we just about got there. But on the plus point, we've got fresh bread every other day now. And yeah, so.
I was going to say, I put that down as one of the best purchases. I think that's in strong demand. It's certainly one of the things that I've really struggled to get hold of. So I might need your details after this show so that you can send me some of those. Just 1 or 2 kilos will be fine for me. So thanks for sharing that with us, Alex. Let me start with a bit more of an introduction, just for the benefit of everyone tuning in. If you could give us perhaps just a very brief overview of BAE Systems and what it does within cyber, and also a bit more about your background as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I suspect a lot of people have heard of BAE Systems, but it's usually in the context of military platforms, what we do for the defence market, where the UK's and one of Western Europe's biggest defence and security companies. Now I sit within Applied Intelligence, BAE Systems Applied Intelligence, which is one of the business units of BAE. We focus on solving complex mission-critical challenges with technology-based solutions, often cyber challenges or challenges where the cyber and the data worlds collide. So we focus on sort of larger organizations with sophisticated needs, typical government, financial services, critical national infrastructure, and generally, I mean, we say we protect nations, citizens, and defend against cyber threats and fight financial crime. So I sit within the cybersecurity part of the business, so I look after the consulting part. And my background has been there for about 19 years in consulting, predominantly cybersecurity consulting for most of that, across government, commercial sectors. And for the last few years, I've been running our cybersecurity consulting profession and practice, and before that looking after some of the site technical services team. So we do security advisory services, we design and build SOCs, we support SOC operations, and we deliver security transformation programs for governments, financial services, critical national infrastructure.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for that, Alex. That's useful for both my own understanding, and I'm sure it's useful context for everyone tuning in as well. And we've spoken a lot on this show about the new normal that we're seeing ourselves working in right now, this new working environment. But as governments around the world encourage us to embrace the kind of the staying at home and therefore working from home as far as we can, this new normal, we're exploring what that means from a cybersecurity perspective. So you've been looking into the risks organisations are facing as a result of an urgent shift into this remote working, because some organisations, it's probably fair to say, have been better prepared than others in here. But can you elaborate in terms of the work that you've been doing, what that really looks like?
Yeah, of course. I mean, as you said, there's been a rapid shift to remote working wherever possible globally that we've seen over the last few months, especially in the UK. Really stressed organisations. And within the space of a few weeks, they've had to look at what their mission critical operations are, what they need to retain, what they can suspend partially or fully, what programs they can suspend, and how to continue to deliver the stuff that they need to deliver both safely and securely for their staff, customers, stakeholders, etc. And this is government and commercial domains, or a lot of commercial organisations, obviously a lot of them, financial stress as well. In our experience, we've seen a real dichotomy between both approach and readiness between different organisations. I mean, it's actually quite good to be able to say this, but in government and central government, actually we found that because a lot of them have been pursuing decentralisation programs over the last 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 years, and heavy digital transformation programs, a lot of enabling low site working, drive towards cloud remote working. A lot of these organisations, actually all they had to do was to scale up the remote working capability, and in places just accelerate stuff that they already had in place. So I think one government department accelerated into about 2 weeks what they were going to do over about 18 months in terms of video conferencing like this. One department, they've recently built a SOC, and they built it from the outset to be deliverable, operable remotely. So for those organisations, actually they're in a pretty good position considering. But that's not universal. For a lot of other organisations, much less structured approach, lack of consistent configuration, lots of tactical decisions to who do we need to shift, what tools do they need if we've got bandwidth, how do we support these, how do we support people working remotely? Do we have enough laptops? Do we have BDI solutions? How are our business processes going to function when people are working different hours? You can't check presence. You really, one thing I've found is we've really embraced video conferencing and trying to set up that sort of virtual coffee cooler, round the fridge conversation, but do that virtually, because there's so much business benefit that comes from those sorts of things. And some organisations have really struggled to do that, and particularly we found that where it's all very well having remote access enabled, having collaboration solutions enabled, but the culture that goes with it. So organisations that did that routinely have, they've just shifted the dial a little bit, whereas others have, there's been a sense of working out, how are we going to make this work? How do we do it? Everything's been turned upside down. From a security perspective, that begs all kinds of questions, because we do so much around the tactical, trying to keep the lights on, trying to work out which lights we have to keep on, and just try to keep the business running. In some cases, for some commercial organizations, it's existential. So not many people are looking at then, well, how does this hang together? So a good example is I've got my monitoring capability in the big sense of the word, for detect attacks, things that are happening. Is that still working? are people actually going to respond to events as quickly as possible? Can they get hold of the next person in the line if they need to? How do you know if that person's there? How do you know if they're not sick? Who's standing in for them? How's the chain of command work? If I need to do a response to an investigation, how am I going to do that? Am I really going to try and take a forensic image of something down a remote VPN? Or am I going to send someone to site? How are these things going to work? And similarly, a lot of the stress points in networks have been shifted. I mean, the most obvious one is remote access. But there's other things, in particular around business processes, the ways we authorize things, and stress points and bottlenecks that have been introduced into there that means organizations may find they're not able to respond as quickly or as effectively as they could.
So what's interesting there, Alex, actually, is there's a bit of an adjacency, because you talk a lot, you're articulating a lot around the complexities of this kind of remote working, and also the interdependencies of some of these component parts that fit together. And you talk about the business process there, but of course, there is something that sits kind of neatly alongside that as well, which of course is the supply chain. Are you seeing that organizations face an increased risk from that part of it as well?
I mean, that's never gone away, really. I mean, since back many years, in 2016, we've identified a lot of campaigns attacking lots of organizations, including government organizations, by the supply chains, by their managed service providers. That's not gone away. And I think it's especially pertinent when we talk about, say, government, central government, that some of them are in a pretty good position considering where they could have been. But they've got their supply chain. They've got their suppliers who they're dependent on to manage their IT, manage their services. And it's not just the steady state services that they require. It's when something happens, when there's a perturbation. And that's when it really will show up the stresses or the stress in their organization. And are they able to, when you need them to make a change fast or do an investigation or support you in dealing with an incident or remediation, are they actually then resourced to be able to do that? Or are they, not an organization, just really hanging on to the core business as usual, but it's throw something else in and it's a sure that like comes back. And so I think for a lot of organizations, you can't just look at how am I directly, but you need to look at, is my supply chain as effective as I need it to be? And are their suppliers effective as needed to be? Now, some organizations, they will be looking at this, but not everyone.
And of course, another dynamic there as well is the people element, of course. So we've talked a lot about on this show around kind of the well-being and people being mindful of making sure they're not clicking on malicious links or opening up email attachments that are suspicious. But how much of a risk do you really think people are, especially now, to a business or a government?
Good question. I mean, it's often said that people are both your strongest asset and your weakest link in one. And frankly, that hasn't changed. I mean, some of the things that we've seen in terms of organizations dealing with and adapting to this change has been versatility from individuals finding solutions and ways of doing things. But at the same time, all this disruption, change of how they're working, if you like, the normal frame of reference that makes me go, this is normal, this is unusual. I'm just going to ask the question about that. Is that actually right, or is something strange going on? That frame of reference has been completely disrupted for many, thrown out the window, especially where processes have had to be reformed and restructured themselves. So the risk from there from social engineering is, I think, amplified, and certainly we've been following a lot of research teams, a lot of campaigns from February even, looking at both attackers exploiting the crisis as an opportunity for phishing. I mean, fairly public. The FBI put out a notification in 20th of March around attacks to healthcare, for example. But the other side is attackers just exploiting the fact that you've got all this disruption, that people are stressed, people are worrying about their dependents, people are having to balance childcare, look after sick ones, they're worried about their health. All of this compounded, I think, really does present a risk. And there's a lot of emphasis on organisations trying to provide pastoral care and engagement and look after staff to give them the support so that that risk is mitigated to a degree.
And when we talk a lot about risks here, I mean, the risks are just inherent in day-to-day life, but what makes this emergency situation different to those normally faced by businesses, do you think?
That's a good question. I mean, in theory, it's just business continuity event, isn't it? For me, I think the main aspects are, first of all, the universality. I've never seen a business continuity plan, and I realise as I say this, there's someone who's listening who's probably written one that does this. But anyway, I've never seen one that had the scenario where the entire supply chain, upstream and downstream, along with every other stakeholder you deal with, are also similarly impacted. Most organisations, they just don't consider it. It's so unlikely bucket. And the other one for me is the timescales. Most business continuity plans and the planning is around the fact that something's going to happen, and then you're going to put in place a series of activities to restore you back to normal. So there's an end date and finite end date on that, and you've got some control over that. That's not there in this case. And then you throw into that the whole piece of wider personal stress, because it's not an event that's just impacting businesses, it's also impacting all the staff, whether they're in the UK or elsewhere. It's impacting everyone in a personal way, in different ways. So that for me are the key differences.
Yeah, and I think you're right. You're putting your finger on it there. These are truly extraordinary times, and in some ways, no amount of planning perhaps stretched as far as the reality of the situation we're facing now, and we're kind of working hard to perhaps plug some of those gaps. Now, what I do notice is that usually around this time we would see Steve raise his virtual hand. Now, clearly Steve's not here today, but Kerry, hot on the heels, I think has got a couple of questions for you. Kerry, what have you got?
I do. I'm overstepping my role once again. But yeah, Alex, actually, I was just really interested about what you were saying around continuity plans. Obviously, businesses spend a lot of time and resource in making sure that they have their continuity plans in place and have all of the right procedures. Do you still think that that's a worthwhile activity if they don't actually help when you're in an emergency situation like COVID?
I think it's absolutely essential that they do that, and also I think it's been observed, and the comments have been made to it. Actually, what some of the government departments did was they had their Brexit scenario plans, and they adapted those and used parts of those plans to deal with this situation. So it's absolutely key to do that. But I think what organisations need to do is, there's been a huge flurry of, depending on where you were, tactical, just make it work. It's about looking at a sustainable future. This is not going to go away immediately. It's going to be with us in some form for at least the medium term. So to say, the things I've put into place now, how do I adapt those so that they're sustainable, cost effective? I can actually keep running like this for the next 3 to 6 months or some longer time scale. So to turn it into something almost, I mean, the phrase I was using is, we talked about business continuity events, but almost to say, look, what you've effectively done is forced, unplanned, unscheduled digital transformation on a huge number of businesses, government departments, etc. Say, well, which bits of this can we embrace, can we make more effective, so that we actually make it work for us, so it's sustainable. And I think that applies absolutely to saying, how does the security function work? People's awareness, people's attention, saying, yeah, this is normal, this isn't, I need to be alert about this, and all the processes that go with it, responding to incidents, detecting incidents, managing everything, etc.
And with that in mind, are there any sort of specific questions that you think should be added into their continuity planning because of this?
So I think, in my mind, the key thing is to say, when an event happens, you need to be saying, well, what has happened? What are now my key points of exposure, my stress, my new single points of failure? across IT systems, but also across business processes. It's about the people process as well as the physical system. What can you do then to bolster your resilience? I mean, the scenario I was thinking is something's happened. We're all working slightly differently. Sadly, real life goes on. The events, the incidents, the things that come along, the other attacks, whether they're cyber attacks or just other incidents, failures, those are still going to happen in some form. So you need to be resilient to those, even when you're operating in this new normal, this alternate mode. So it's about understanding how are you going to detect those, how are you going to respond to them effectively and efficiently, who you need to be dependent on, and make sure that those things, those organisations are set up to actually help you and are able to do that. But also communicate with your staff. I mean, the most obvious example, rapid uptake of collaboration tools, things about security vulnerability, this, that, and the other changes in certain platforms. I'm avoiding naming them specifically. The platforms themselves, huge stress as they've scaled up. But actually give guidance to staff as, yeah, you can use this, this, and this for these, but not for this. Use this, make it clear, make it easy for them, and communicate and engage with people. And that needs to be part of the plan, so that when something happens, you say, well, let's look at the sustainability of it, because we might not be able to recover in our normal recovery period of 2 months. It might be longer than that. So that you can make it sustainable.
Great, thank you. So that's it from me, but I do have a couple of questions from the audience, if that's okay now, Stuart.
Yeah, absolutely. Please go ahead.
Perfect. We've got a question from Harrison. He's asking do you think the public sector is more vulnerable than the private sector due to the lack of ability to move quickly?
It doesn't feel that way. It really doesn't. I mean, as I said, the public sector is under less initial financial stress. I mean, there will be financial stress, but right now it's not under the same financial pressure that commercial organisations are under. And secondly, because of a lot of the transformation programs that they've been pushing forward over the last few years and really decentralising out of London, a lot of the things that you want to have in place are already there, or at least they're in partial capabilities, so they were able to scale up. Are commercial organisations able to actually respond quicker if they need to? Some of them, yeah, definitely. But they weren't all from the same starting point. I think it varies hugely. I mean, you can't compare a small fintech organisation that will do things incredibly rapidly with a global defence and engineering company that has 80,000 employees.
Mm. Yeah. Great, and then I think we've covered most of the other ones, but there's just one in from Susan who's saying, do you think that the SOC's ability to respond to an incident is impacted from them having to work remotely?
It depends entirely on the operational procedures in terms of how the SOC works. If the SOC was originally designed and developed in terms of an operating model so that the analysts can work remotely, it doesn't matter where they are, but all the communication channels, etc., then it shouldn't really matter. It shouldn't really matter. I think what's really important is it's clear how things like escalation chains work. When an incident happens, being able to identify, actually need to escalate this. Where's the decision point for this? Where does that sit? How to get hold of this people? You're not in a big room. You can't walk over to whoever the team lead is and say, oh, I can't get hold of so-and-so. You can't do that. So you need to have those processes set up so they work reliably within a remote environment, because the time they're going to be stressed is when you have an incident, and that's when you need to know now, do I turn this off? Do I leave this on? Who's going to make that decision? And you can make that happen.
Great, thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you for the questions. Also, thank you very much, Alex, for giving us your insights as well. It's a really quite a current as well as a fascinating subject, and I think that everyone can appreciate that we're certainly in uncharted waters right now. But it's interesting to see quite how far the implications may go. Do you have any final points, Alex, that you want to leave the audience? What they should be keeping a close eye on or look out for, what they might not realise is of vital importance right now?
I think the key things for me are there's been massive disruption, massive change, bigger indication of business continuity plans seen, I don't know, probably since IT came on. Make sure you can still effectively and performantly detect and respond to incidents. You're going to be able to understand and manage both your cyber and wider business and operational resilience, not just a steady state, but when incidents happen, when stuff happens, how am I going to be able to cope with it and be resilient to it? And finally, just maintaining the effectiveness of cybersecurity, both the team itself, but also the wider organisation, because they are part of your culture, they are part of your cybersecurity culture. And then lastly, it's not just a tactical deployment. So look to whatever you've done, work to make it sustainable, so you can keep this going in the medium term, the near long term.
Excellent. Really appreciate those top tips there, Alex. Alex, thank you very much for joining us today. It's almost the top of the show now, but before we close, I'd like to hand back over to Kerry to give us a bit of a wash up of today's news. Kerry, what have we got?
Thanks, Stuart. Yeah, so before we go into the news, Sheila's come through on the messaging saying that the worst, not the worst, but the most worthwhile purchase he's made during lockdown has been a frother to make his coffee into a latte. Very fancy.
Good. Yeah, very nice.
So going into the news, InfoSecurity magazine reports that Fresenius, Europe's largest private hospital operator, has suffered a ransomware attack. HMRC have tackled almost 300 coronavirus phishing websites, according to Computer Weekly. And finally, in Information Security magazine, there is research that says that women are less likely to fall victim to cybercrime than men, because women are allegedly more likely to use unique passwords. It is a good day for being a woman.
Excellent. Well, I suspect that that might be hotly contested, that piece. So I'd encourage everyone to go and read the article to make up their own mind. So thank you for that, Kerry. I also have to say that the news never fails to amaze me. It's really sad, and it kind of underlines the fact that cyber criminals, it's not just a faceless victimless crime. It's really sad that we're seeing all of the pressures that we have right now on the health services across the world, and yet they're being exploited by the cyber criminals. So I guess it's good to see that that's being balanced a little bit by the HMRC story, though, where there's clearly a huge amount of headway being made in removing some of those malicious sites or potentially malicious sites. Ransomware, as we've covered on this show many times before, often stem back to a phishing attack. So it's good to see that there's a lot of work going on to get in front of that and step it. But good reminder to us all to remain vigilant, probably now more than ever. So thank you for that story. Also, thank you very much again to Alex. That is it for today, and indeed another week, because it is a short week here in the UK. Tomorrow is VE Day, so it's a bank holiday here in the UK. So special thanks to today's guest, Alex Crompton, Head of Security Consulting at BAE Systems. Also to the other guests we've had this week, Gary Hibbard, Mark Oakton and Kath Golding. Everybody here front of house and behind the scenes at 0 Days Live, and of course to all of you for tuning in. Have an excellent rest of the day and indeed weekend, and we'll see you again soon. Goodbye.
Bye.